Hello and welcome to Lightup, a channel where we get into interactions, conversations about things that we can do to help our children to thrive better, to grow better, to be resilient, and to become responsible citizens. Today I'm going to talk about a very short topic. I'm going to have a very short conversation on the topic of decision making or making choices. Now, a while ago when I was working in an organization in civil society circles, we used to do a lot of programs that advanced the reproductive and sexual health of young people. And we always came up with this contradiction whenever we went to communities, sometimes when we interacted with stakeholders like religious leaders, parents themselves, and sometimes schools. There was always this contradiction that if you're going to talk to young people about adolescent sexual and reproductive health, what kind of information do you give them? And how do you do this exactly? And is it safe? Is it even right? Now, the background to that was always that we live in what I would call a conservative society where as we were growing up ourselves as parents, we never really had those open discussions about sex and sexuality with our parents. That never happened. These were conversations that were always given to young people who are in courtship, they're getting married, and that was it. As you were growing through school, all through your teenage years, up to when you become a youth, all this information was taboo, and in most cases it was always through peers. It was secondary information, and it carried a lot of misinformation, so to say. So on discovering that, as we were doing our programs with my colleagues, we used to always say, okay, we need to give young people the right information. And of course, this really raised a lot of contradictions. People were not comfortable with this. In the thinking and in the mindsets of community leaders, community elders, religious leaders, parents, their argument generally, and here I'm generalizing, they would say that, look, if you give young people information about sex, if you give young people information on reproductive health, it's indirectly a promotion of them doing that. It might lead to promiscuity, it might lead to young people becoming sexually active, and all the other things that move along with that kind of perception. So that was their argument. And they were right in their argument to be concerned. So we really took that seriously. But in our response, we continuously educated our community stakeholders that I think, and we were right, that the reverse is actually true. That if you give young people information regarding their sexual health, regarding sexuality, regarding information on reproductive health, it actually empowers them. It starts by giving them education, information. It educates them and puts them in the right frame, and they have the right information, and with that now they can make the right decisions. And as we had these conversations back and forth, we were already implementing the program, trying to cooperate and collaborate with the stakeholders. Our data over the years vindicated us because it gave us leverage to really make our argument that it was the right argument. How? Because we showed data back to the communities that in the schools where we took our information, educated and trained young people on reproductive health section, sexuality, adolescent reproductive health information and services, teenage pregnancies dropped. Dropout rates in those schools that we targeted reduced, and in most cases to zero, and young people were more informed. And what happened is the result was also that then we started clubs where these young people who were really confident were informed. They started to do peer education, to talk to their peers. And all this information worked well. And I'm giving this background to try and elaborate the importance of giving information and helping young people to make decisions. But the key gist of this conversation is about decision making. Now, young people have to make decisions, and they also make decisions. And I bring this about because for some parents, when it comes to the decision making, when they look at young people, the first thinking or the first understanding will be that for this young person, I have to make the decisions, I have to decide what they are going to put on and the like, and rightly so. As a parent, that is your full responsibility, 100%. But let's not forget that as a young person, they too must make decisions. And it borderlines danger when again we play the same game that I just explained in the story that I just gave. That to tell a young person that you can't play around with this, you can't do this and that, you can't interact with people, you can't go out and the like is not enough. Okay? To tell a young person reasons or the outcomes of processes helps them to understand, and it helps to build into their decision-making processes. Now, when and at what time do young people make decisions? Every day. Every day of their lives, they have to make decisions. This may not seem obvious to you, but it happens. A young person will have to decide, what kind of friends am I going to have? Who do I associate with? Who do I lend my book to? What do I do after class? What do I do when this happens? And in most of these cases, you're not there as a parent. The teachers are not there. The siblings are not there. They are in constant worlds where they are required to make decisions, however small, however simple, or sometimes even when they are hard and complex decisions. What does that tell us? It only tells us that the conversation to have young people understand that with every decision there lies a consequence is very important. And it cannot wait when they're at a certain age. You're not going to wait until your child is approaching adulthood at 18 for you to have conversation with them about decision making. My suggestion from the experience that we've had working with young people and what I just explained, teach your child or help your child to start making informed decisions. Start conversations where they get to debate on certain issues regarding a specific issue. Give them an opportunity to come up with scenarios and discuss the repercussions, the outcomes, the results of every scenario, because this will help them to understand that when I make a decision, before I make the decision, I have to do a rationale. I have to think through the process. I have to anticipate and imagine what might happen. Better yet, when they are in a position to have the information before they make a decision, that will help them in most cases to make the right decision. And that is the right thing to do. Now, when you have a 10-year-old, you can have a 10-year-old conversation. A conversation with a 10-year-old. And a 10-year-old will also have decisions to make in their life in some sort of way. But you need to encourage them and talk to them so that they can have that opportunity to think, to independently look back and reflect and say, oh, okay, if I chose to go and play with my friends for most of the time, it doesn't give me enough time to do my homework. But to do my homework is equally important. So I have to make a decision that before I go to play out with my friends, and that is my right and that is okay, I need to take half an hour, 30 minutes, and focus on my homework. Or I might go and play with my friends, and then afterwards I have to stop at a certain point, look at the time, and come in time to do my homework, because it's also important, because it has to wait. And I don't want to go to school tomorrow to meet my teacher when my homework is not done. This starts with a conversation. Then they need to see the value in making informed decisions. Then they have to see the results. Now, what happens when this happens consistently? When a young person is as young as 7, all the way to when they become 18. By the time they graduate into adulthood, you have a young person who is resilient and who can make informed decisions every time. And that is when you will see a young person making a difficult decision, that everyone will say, oh, we didn't expect this person to make this decision, but they did. Because now that's part of their character, it's part of their value system, and they understand what decision making is all about. They understand the results, and they know the values that come with making the right decisions. So I hope that is something that you can pick up this year. Start practicing it. It's not too late. Just get into the habit of having conversations about the decisions that young people make, about the decisions that your son makes or your daughter makes. And here's a kicker. Even when they've made a decision and it's not right and you see that the results were negative, it's a good idea to have a civil conversation with them, a friendly conversation, a parent-child conversation, and let's talk about what happened and what we learned from it, because that's a good learning environment and that's a good learning point for them to make reference. So I hope you can put that into practice. Good luck and see you next time.